Good afternoon, everybody.
Great. Bonjour à tous.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order. We will now begin meeting number 80 of the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritages. This meeting is being held on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Today's meeting is taking place in hybrid format pursuant to the standing order adopted in June.
Health authorities and the Board of Internal Economy no longer asks you to wear masks indoors on the precinct. Masks and respirators are still excellent tools to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and other respiratory diseases. So I encourage your use. Now, I would like to do some housekeeping a bit, and that is to let everyone know, well, Ms. Cooks is the only one, that at the bottom of your screen, you will see a little globe. If you press that, it gives you interpretation in the language of your choice, English, French, or the original language. I also wanted to remind everyone that you must speak through the chair. Also that please keep your mics on mute when you're not speaking, and click them off as soon as you finish speaking. Otherwise, we get all kinds of sounds from the room. All right. Please do not take photographs of the screen. It's not permitted. And you can view this on the House of Commons website later on. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, March the 20th, 2023, the committee is meeting to continue its study on tech giants' current and on safe sport. I'm so very sorry. On safe sport. So we have one witness today, and that is the president of Soccer Canada, Ms. Charmaine Crooks. And I just wanted to welcome Ms. Crooks today. Ms. Crooks, there are a couple of things that you should know. You'll be given 10 minutes to present. I will give you a literal shout out at 30 seconds before so you can wind up. And then we will go to a question and answer period after that. So please begin, Ms. Crooks, for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Bonjour. Hello, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Charmaine Crooks. I'm the newly elected volunteer president of Canada Soccer, and I'm honored to be the first woman and first person of color to serve in that role in its 111-year history. As someone who's worked for decades to improve inclusion, ethics, and well-being in sport, I do not underestimate the importance of this mandate, and I look forward to serving all of the constituents of Canada Soccer. I'd like to begin today by telling you about my background as an athlete and volunteer, hoping to use my experience to further the conversation about good governance and safe sport in Canada. I was born in Jamaica to a family of 9 children and came to Canada when I was 6. Canada is where I developed and grew as a person and athlete, helping me become a Canadian track and field national team member and an Olympic medalist. I was the first female athlete in Canadian history to be named to 5 Olympic Games. As a former international competitor during an era when track and field faced systemic sports ethics challenges, I am deeply conscious of the importance of good governance and ethical leadership to ensure a safe and fair sporting environment. At the 1996 Olympic Games, I was Canada's flag bearer for the opening ceremony, partly in recognition of my work off the track with sport organizations and athletes. That honor cemented my commitment to being an advocate to make sport better. In 2012, I was awarded the Order of Canada for my athletics and volunteer work with the International Olympic Movement, including for my efforts to develop the IOC Code of Ethics. As a woman of color who has been part of the elite global sports system, I've experienced both the wonderful and unfortunate realities that coexist in sport. Whether abuse comes straight at you or in the form of microaggressions, the pain and the damage are real. As leaders, we have a duty to stamp that out. I believe I've earned the opportunity and have recently been elected to take on the leadership of Canada Soccer and use my experiences to help improve and to heal. Some of my credentials, which I hope can assist this committee in its work, include my work with the first group of active athletes elected by their peers to the International Olympic Committee as voting members. As an IOC Athletes Commission member, I focused on building athlete representation and decision-making in the Olympic movement and supporting athletes during and after their careers. I also served on the IOC Culture and Education Commission, IOC 2000 Reform Commission, the IOC Ethics Commission, and the World Anti-Doping Agency. I believe these experiences are particularly relevant to the discussion we're going to have today about safe sport. In addition to my role with the IOC, I was a founding member of Right to Play, which seeks to protect, educate, and empower children using the power of sport. I also continued my role as a volunteer board member with the Canadian Olympic Committee and as a member of the 2010 Vancouver Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games Organizing Committee. With that background, I'm keenly aware of the power and importance of leadership and sport as vehicles for personal realization, uniting people, and driving societal change. I'm proud of my record of advocating for athletes and championing fair, equitable, and safe sport. Now, I provided that background so that the committee here understands my purpose to stand by and advocate for athletes who deserve our utmost respect and are the reason we all do what we do. In my new role as volunteer president, it's my duty to uphold Canada Soccer's mission to provide leadership in the pursuit of excellence in soccer at the grassroots, national, and international levels. We strive to lead Canada to victory, but also encourage all Canadians to have a lifelong passion for soccer and work to ensure that it's the safest sport in our country. We are committed to ensuring the association delivers on every aspect of that mandate every day. Over the last few years, substantial progress has been made to ensure more board engagement, and certainly in the last few months, a desire for increased transparency. The modernization of our board has resulted in the election of a woman of color as president and of Paul-Claude Berube, a Quebec lawyer and person with disabilities, as our vice president. In recent months, Canada Soccer's leadership has brought an improved approach to how we listen and collaborate, and we began work with all our members and partners to build a better, more inclusive environment for players, coaches, referees, administrators, and volunteers. That work strengthens our record over the last decade plus of building robust safe sport protocols like the Canada Safe Sport roster. It's also supportive of our commitments to delivering equal pay and ensuring the environment for both senior national teams are set up for long-term success. Those priorities will continue to be a focus during my presidency, and we will achieve further improvements in those areas. Now, on the topic of inclusion, I want to recognize a key step towards a landmark for women's soccer in Canada, the creation of a domestic women's professional league. At the recent Canada Soccer annual meeting, our membership unanimously voted into membership Project 8, the new women's professional soccer league here in Canada. We are rapidly approaching the day when women's professional teams in Canada will help develop the next generation of women's national team players. I am thrilled for the Project 8 team, and we look forward to the successful future of the league and its players. Now, our national team players and all our athletes, referees, members, and fans deserve the very best sports environment. We will continue to work over the next year and beyond to ensure that that's the case. On that note, during the past few weeks as interim and now elected president, I heard from our players, members, partners, and fans alike that trust, greater transparency, and better communication are crucial to ensuring we are a stable and strong organization that every Canadian can be proud of. I've heard, and I wholeheartedly agree with that input. My mandate in this time of evolution, along with the board, is to continue that work and improve conditions in all areas of our sport. I think we all know that the sports system is imperfect. As elected officials, I'm sure this committee knows that the best way to make change is to get involved and usher change from within, which I've always strove to do and intend to do in my new role. My key priorities are ensure pay equity is realized and that national team budgets are managed effectively to ensure success of our women's and men's programs. to engage in discussions with Canadian soccer business to ensure both parties benefit equally from this partnership and that discussions around the women's game in Canada are continued. Get more people from the business world and more players engaged in governance to ensure they have a voice in the association's direction. This means more voting power for members, ensuring the grassroots level has a voice throughout the association. Ensure that full administrative and financial transparency is ensured and eliminate the uncertainty and misunderstandings that led to some of the hardships within the association and with our players. And lastly, I intend to build an environment in which people feel safe to participate in our sport, voice their opinions, and in which diversity is valued and included. As interim president, I contacted and met with many stakeholders, including territorial and provincial members, players reps, alumni, Project 8 team, CSB, and more. I intend to continue that outreach as president and have already started that in my first week. I've lived my life advocating for athletes' rights. I know that to build trust, you need to be transparent and follow through on what you say you will actually do. I know what it's like for athletes to make personal and financial sacrifices, train long hours, spend time away from family, and put their minds and bodies on the line to realize their dreams for Canada. As president, I'm excited for and committed to realizing the current opportunity to heal and move Canada soccer forward so we continue to grow the grassroots, build on the success of our national teams, and truly maximize the potential of the professional game in both the women's and men's games. That commitment includes appearing before you today to address your questions directly and with respect. In turn, during your questioning, I expect members of this committee to display the proper respect and decorum this important, vital topic deserves, and to further the principles of safe sport, which include creating safe spaces for solution seeking and for discussion. I will execute this presidency along with my partners and along with all the members in the same spirit. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crooks. I was just about to give you a 30-second shout out, so there you go. Now we're going to go to the question and answer component, and the first round is a 6-minute round, and the 6-minute round for each question and answer includes question and answer. So I would like everybody, because we have shortened this meeting because of the votes, and I know it's Thursday and all kinds of people have got to get flights to get home, etc. So I'm hoping we can get a lot of questions in during the time that we have allocated. Now, so I shall go to the Conservatives. First up, Kevin Waugh. Kevin, 6 minutes, please.
Chair, I just want to clarify a time before I start when this meeting would end. When this meeting would end.
Well, given that in the past meetings on Thursdays, I know that people have rushed to get trains and planes, I would suggest that we could go to 6, but I would think that most people might find 5:45 better. But again, I will bow to the will of the committee for what you want to do. If 5:45 is fine, or if you want to go to 6, again, we will do that.
I'm hearing 5:45 around the table.
All right, then we will look at a 5:45 time. Okay. Exactly. Thank you.
Okay.
Begin, Kevin, 6 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Crooks. I don't have to tell you the national teams are absolutely pissed off with you and your organization. Before New Brunswick, the AGM, they had letters out to everybody. They are absolutely disappointed in the leadership of Canada Soccer, which you have been a part of for the last 10 years. So I did hear your 10-minute speech. You've got a problem with both national teams, not only one now, but both of them are demanding massive change. What are you going to do for them?
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your question. First of all, what happened in the past was not perfect. I acknowledge that, and that's why I stepped up to be president, and that's why I ran for election, and I just want to make sport better. Of course, I acknowledge a lot of the historic hurts that have happened in the past with our athletes, but we are working to make it a better place. All of us want to make Canada Soccer a better place. We've had challenges, and we will continue to work through that.
Have you spoken to any of the team members since Saturday's vote?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that question. Yes, I have seen many of the players, and I have spoken to some of the alumni, and we move forward in the direction that will make us better. I've heard their concerns, and we are acting on many of them immediately. And one of the pillars will be athletes' engagement in the governance process, and we have already started looking at how that will be.
Canada Soccer was heavily criticized for conflicts of interest among its management ranks, according to the Globe and Mail. Its policies to manage conflicts of interest received a failing grade, in fact 2, they said, suggesting that signs of a problem were apparent a few years ago. It also received a dismal grade for board development, 1 out of 5. You were on this board. Your thoughts on what the Globe and Mail, access of information, said about Canada Soccer, because, you're the second most powerful sport agency in the country, and yet you have a 2 and you have a 1, which both are failing grades.
Madam Chair, I did see some of that report this morning. I believe that those reports are necessary as measures to see where organizations are, particularly when it comes to governance. What I can say, Madam Chair, is that our governance policies are aligned with some of the new initiatives that were announced today. We have a very diverse board. We have a board with 40% independent members. So we have changed a lot of structures, even in light of some of the new governance matters that I heard today. And we hope that we will be better. We are working on better and making sure that all the voices throughout our organization is heard.
Your organization has not revealed the names of coaches that have been suspended. Athletes Canada, along with gymnastics, have done so. Why have you refused to name these coaches over the years?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure what the essence of that question is, but I can say that we do have a very strong safe sport roster, and that policy was put into place and approved by the board in 2019. And that roster now, a coach cannot move around the country without us knowing who they are. And so this is what we are doing within this safe sport roster to ensure that a coach who has breached will never be able to coach anywhere in the system across Canada.
You show that coaches that have been suspended, will other people in this country have access to that? Or is it just a national registry? Or what are you going to do to show provinces and teams in this country that there are issues with coaches in this country?
As you know, we are now going through the ITP recommendations from the McLaren to put all those in place. And we are looking to strengthen that so that anybody who wants to go beyond the system and the rules will not be able to do that. Our goal is to make this sport the safest in Canada, and we are strengthening that every day to be able to do that, especially with the coaches.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to switch now to Mr. Martel. Mr. Martel for 2 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. 2 minutes. I would like to know your relationship with Canada Soccer Business. I'd like to know whether you've had an opportunity to make part of the decision-making process, or are you completely dependent on Canada Soccer Business or independent of Canada Soccer Business?
Madam Chair, thank you very much for your question. As you may have heard in previous testimonies, Canada Soccer Business is an agency relationship that we have that benefits soccer all across the country. We, in the past, to grow our game, we would have to spend millions on broadcasting. What this opportunity has provided for us is to grow our game through broadcasting and streaming rights. In the first 24 hours of my interim presidency, I had conversations with Canada Soccer, and we are currently looking at ways to modernize this agreement. And that includes looking at the unilateral terms, as well as opportunities for sponsorship growth throughout. So right now, it may not be the most perfect deal, but this is an opportunity for us to grow our game.
Mais vous admettez qu'il y a...
But you admit that there is a problem with Canada Soccer Business. and Canada Soccer.
We are over
I
6
did not
minutes,
mention
but
that.
I will allow Ms. Crooks to have a quick answer to that.
Thank you very much. What I did say is that it is not a perfect deal. A lot of deals are not perfect deals, but we do believe that in this time, we will modernize it, and we have already started that process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I go to the second questioner, and that's for the Liberals. Anthony Housefather. Anthony, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Crooks, I want to start by thanking you for your enormous contribution to Canadian sports and to the Olympic movement for so long. I just want to ask a few questions, if it's okay, to clean some things up from last week's election. The first is, can you commit that you will not terminate or sanction John Herdman or Bev Priestman from their roles, given the men's team and women's team came out in opposition to your presidency? Will you commit to not take any vindictive action against people that were against you for the presidency?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I work for every single constituent across the country, no matter how one voted. And as you know, the elections, those who voted on me were a wide membership. The provinces and territories, the MLS teams, the CPL teams, the coaches, the referees, and the players. Perhaps there might have been differing views, but this is no reflection on anyone in particularly. I'm looking at this as an opportunity to give back, and I will work for every corner of the organization, from grassroots all the way up to our national teams.
Basically, I just wanted to, so basically you're assuring me that there will not be any retribution against anybody that didn't support you, correct?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is about building bridges. Building bridges.
Can I also, I know that you were part of this, a little bit of a controversy last weekend when, Stephanie Labbe asked you if you had been at that meeting that we've talked about at this committee where Mr. Bontis said, what was Christine Bixing about to Ms. Sinclair? And you had said that you weren't there. Are you confident that you weren't there, given there, that now both Ms. Sinclair, Ms. Becky, Quinn, and Ms. Schmidt have all said that you were there?
Madam Chair, I did check my schedule, and I did not see a meeting matching the date when that call may or may not have taken place. But really, for me, it really is about respect. It's about respect for our players. It's about respect for everybody who touches our organization. And that kind of language and that kind of tone of speaking with our players or anybody is something that I would never, ever condone. I believe you. But
again, I want to get through some questions. And I believe you, of course, Ms. Crooks, that you wouldn't. The question is, Sean Bodden, who was the lawyer representing Canada Soccer, confirmed by email for this video conference on Friday, January the 28th, that you would be one of the attendees. And he did so only a day before the call. And I think the feeling was that if you had been there, why didn't you say something to Mr. Bontis? So you're confident, even though the lawyer for Canada Soccer said you were going to be there, that the players all remember you were there, that you weren't there?
Madam Chair, as I said, I checked my schedule and did not see that I accepted an invitation to that call. But I do stand by the fact that that tone and that rhetoric and that language that was displayed to all those players is totally unacceptable.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Also, Don Rossi was elected to the board this weekend. Mr. Rossi is the commissioner of a CSB-owned league. Can you confirm to this committee that Mr. Rossi will be recused and will not be part of any discussions related to Canada Soccer business that Canada Soccer undertakes? And have you taken steps as president to make sure that happens?
Madam Chair, governance rules and following bylaws and following procedures are of the utmost value to this organization. Conflicts of interest is also a part of that. As you know, Mr. Rossi, through the nominations process, did address this. And my understanding, and through our bylaws, is that anyone who has a perceived conflict would have up to 90 days to be able to remove themselves from that conflict. And if they have any other conflicts that may come up throughout the period of their term, every year we have to declare that. And before every meeting, we also have to declare our conflicts. So I'm confident that any conflict that anyone would have would be declared and that that person would recuse themselves from any of those matters pertaining to that issue.
Thank you. My belief is that he should recuse himself, and I just wanted to make sure you as president were cognizant of that, because I think Canada Soccer business is what I will be asking about in my next round throughout the round, and it's a very important issue. Just to also clarify one other thing, we've had a whole succession of former Canada Soccer presidents, Mr. Montegliani, number one, and then Mr. Bontis now, who have occupied roles at CONCACAF and FIFA. Do you occupy any roles at CONCACAF or FIFA, Ms. Crooks?
I have no role at CONCACAF. On FIFA, for many years, I have been a member of the FIFA Competitions Commission. And what the FIFA Competitions Committee does is looks at all the different FIFA-related competitions around the world. So that's the only committee that I'm on.
It's not a paying role, and that's not a paying role, is it? Exactly.
That is an unpaid role.
Thank you. And the last thing I want to ask, just again, because it's come up, and I want to clarify all this before I get to my substantive round about Canada Soccer business. There have been allegations that Mr. Montegliani played quite a big role in this election, that he was making calls on your behalf to different provincial organizations. People have come forward saying he was threatening, that CONCACAF and FIFA would leave Canada or would not support tournaments in Canada and other stuff. Did Mr. Montegliani campaign on your behalf at all? Are you aware of this?
Madam Chair, to suggest that I'm in
30
this role,
seconds.
to suggest that I'm in this role because somebody did something or said something, I think is a real disservice, not just to myself as somebody
what I
who's
said,
been
Ms.
in the
Crooks.
sport for a long time.
Ms.
but
Crooks,
it's also
I did
a
not say that
disservice to all the
I did not
members.
say that. I want to correct that. I did not say that
thank
you were
you.
in
I'm
this role
sorry.
because of it. I'm saying that there was an allegation that this gentleman was campaigning for you and making threats. I just want to understand, did this gentleman do any campaigning for you?
I do not understand that to be the case. Our members are the ones who vote for us in the elections.
Correct, but people make calls to
Thank you.
the
That's
voters.
it,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Housefather. You can come back to that line of questioning later on if you wish. Okay, then we need to go to the Bloc Québécois, Martin Champoux. Sorry, I think it's Mr. Lemire. Sébastien, 6 minutes, please.
Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to begin by underscoring an announcement made by Minister Saint-Onge, which has an impact on your work, and point out that there are a lot of aspects that show that the listening is important, and we are expecting that there will be an independent investigation soon. Ms. Crooks, thank you very much for appearing today, and I'd like to lend my voice to Sarah McCormick, who told us through social media that she wondered, what are you going to do with respect to the board in order to deal with a coach who's allegedly abused people, young athletes? When was this person suspended?
Excuse me, may I please ask for a repetition of the last part of your question? Sorry.
The question is, what did you do to dismiss Bob Kaplan? Because we know that the board was aware of allegations. And when was he suspended definitively and replaced?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding your question, and first of all, I just want to say how deeply saddened that we all were when we heard the board was made aware in 2019 of these allegations. And one thing that was done immediately was asking a board member with appropriate experience to reach out to the former members. And as you also know, that a staff member also did that, and it was also an opportunity to have some additional input. Now, at that time, when that incident occurred, I was not on the board in 2008 when the matters related to Mr. Berarda happened. But in 2019, I can assure you that there was an immediate action to close those gaps in the certification system, and the mechanisms were not in place when that happened in 2008. They are now. And the Safe Sport roster and all the matters that we are doing to do that would ensure that this would never happen again.
Parce qu'en juillet 2010.
In 2009, you were on the board when we talked about Safe Sport, and you had asked that the meeting be pushed back to October 2009. So why not seize this opportunity to discuss Berarda's case at that time?
Madam Chair, I was not on the board in 2008. My term on Canada Soccer started in 2013. Our information about Mr. Berarda we all became aware in 2019. You've had several former presidents who have been to this committee who have also shared their insights and on this matter. Our actions are what we did after 2019, and I'm very confident that our safe sport roster that continues to be improved through the McLaren report and through the work of Alison Forsyth would ensure that that would never, ever happen again.
Pourquoi
Why today your most recent financial report is not found on your website, even though you're talking about good transparency?
Madam Chair, this is something that I have certainly advocated for a very long time at our AEMM, and just recently we have approved that all our minutes, all of our financial records will be posted online, which is a governance best practice. So we're finally have an opportunity, and this will be shared in the interest of further transparency for the organization.
est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire à quel moment ça va être fait?
When will this be done?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, sorry.
When will this be done?
Madam Chair, we hope to have this up very shortly. We're working on it now.
D'avoir plus de précision sur le
Could I have a little bit more clarity about what you mean by very shortly?
The AMM just completed a few days ago. So our team is working on making sure that all of our financial records and our minutes are posted publicly.
Donc, on s'attend au mois de juin.
So would this be happening in June?
I'm happy to get you the exact date, and we'll make sure to inform this committee as soon as that information is up.
D'avoir à vous reconvoquer.
Perhaps we will have you back then. You talked about the financial management of Canada Soccer over the past 2 years. According to the last report, you're in the red. But many current players and former players have suggested that Soccer Canada handcuffed itself, saying that it wasn't taking into account the progress of the national teams and that the welfare of both the men and women's health was neglected. Why is this still continuing? And you who participated in this decision, why? Why did this happen?
30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The current deficit has been attributed to the board's decision to retroactively pay our women's national team on the basis of course, our equal pay, and also the costs from some recent men's national team matches have allowed us to be where we are now. Not to mention the COVID-19 recovery and also the very extensive travels that had to be taken over the past year for our respective teams to travel to World Cup and training competitions.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Lemire. And I go now to the New Democrats. Peter Julian. Peter, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's MP Zarillo sitting in for Peter Julian today. I wanted to just start by recognizing the outstanding achievements in Olympic sports. Thank you so much for that. My questions are, you mentioned at the top of the hour that it's a volunteer position. Has this presidency role always been a volunteer position?
My understanding since I've been, yes, it has been. It's an honor to serve. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Crooks. I'm just wondering if you are aware in the past 10 years that you were on the board, if there are pecuniary advantages of this presidency, and if the past presidents in your terms, are you aware of any pecuniary advantages they might have benefited from?
Madam Chair, I'm not familiar with any of those advantages, and I know that I will continue to serve in this role as a volunteer.
So, Ms. Crooks, you've been with this organization for a long time, and I'm sure you've faced many of the challenges that we heard. I was here on the testimony on March 9th around equity, around discrimination, gender discrimination. So I just wonder if you wouldn't mind just sharing what challenges in your 10-year tenure did you run into on equity and transparency? And do you feel that some of those challenges have been removed with the loss of some of the leadership?
Madam Chair, thank you for that question. I believe that we have an opportunity to reset the organization. I believe that also through our Safe Sport roster and some of the new progressive gold standard that we want to lead to, I strongly believe that we will be in a better place. My leadership is one that is very open and also working very closely with the team. For example, when I was on the board for many years, it was very different. But I also know that it does take time to understand an organization and to be in a position where you can make that positive difference. And I just want to be the type of president for the organization that gives back, that listens, and truly engages all the partners. And having had the opportunity to do that over the past few weeks, as I mentioned, trust, transparency, and open communication. Those are the things that I believe in, and those are the things that I do believe that this role provides an opportunity for the organization to do.
Thank you, Ms. Crooks. And I see that you have a clear vision of what needs to be done. So I'm really trying to understand the cultural barriers that were within the sport organization that didn't allow some of that leadership and some of your vision to break through over the past 10 years. What were some of the barriers and the challenges that you faced that didn't allow this to happen in the last 10 years? Because I think you were the vice president before for many of those years.
Madam Chair, I was vice president for a year, but I believe that decisions are made collectively, and there have been a lot of times and a lot of opportunities where individual voices have a chance to share and a chance to contribute. And I feel I've had that in many ways. So and I'm giving that even more to my board. So that is a style, and I strongly believe that this is the start of the work, not the end. And this new direction should
excuse me,
in that vein,
trust.
Excuse me, sorry, could whoever on the floor has an open mic, can you please mute it? Thank you.
It could be me. Just in that vein of change, it seems it was common practice within Canada Soccer to conclude with oral agreements rather than written ones. And I'm just wondering if you have any plans on governance changes that are needed in regards to more than just a gentleman's handshake and more of some actual written governance and expectations there.
Well, you're up, Madam Chair. I do agree that we will continue to build on all of our governance policies, as mentioned earlier, posting our minutes, better structure, better involvement, better engagement from all the members. And I've already started to work very quickly on how we engage more athletes with a Players Council, with an alumni association built in. I came through that, and as an athlete, I know how important that voice is.
Thank you. And last question, when I was here last, I was asking about, who had seen and who signed the documents with the business agreement that was made. As a board member, did you ever see those documents before signatures were put on them?
I saw most of those documents before the signatures were there, but from what I understand, there was an administrative oversight when it came to the finalization of signatures on that document.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Crooks.
Thank you.
You do have a little less than a minute left.
I still have a minute. Well, I'm going to ask then about the equity and on the funding. So it shows that 39%, I just want to talk a bit about gender equality and discrimination. 39% of the funds of Soccer Canada were invested in the men's national team and 18% for the women's national team. Was that ever raised before you became the president?
30 seconds.
I wasn't, Madam Chair. In terms of some of the inequities that were happening, as you know, we are now fully committed to pay equity. So if you are any member of our national team, we're looking at program equity as well as pay equity. We are deeply committed to that. And with that, we will have a women's team who is the second highest paid team in the world. And I think as Canadians, we can all be proud of that opportunity to show gender diversity throughout the organization, whether it's for player pay, whether it's board members, whether it's looking at throughout our membership, equity and diversity and DEI especially will be a part of that moving forward even stronger.
Thank you very much. We now go to the second round, and the second round begins with the Conservatives for 5 minutes, please. Mr. Shield, Martin Shields. 5 minutes, please, Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the witness being here, and I have some questions and probably go a little quickly. You referred to talking about decision-making we. Does that mean that in the past as a board and in the future as a board?
Madam Chair, in the future, the board, of course, I am president, but I have a style that works very collaboratively. And depending on what the decisions, again, always
So
rest
it's a
ultimately
we,
with us,
and
but
the board in the past, are you saying didn't operate as we, but you used that as we made decisions in the past?
Madam Chair, when it comes to decision-making with any board, it is we do work together
Thank
through
you.
collaboration.
So you said you've used your voice in the past on this board, and you talked about respect and organization. So when we talk about the CSB agreement, you seconded the motion for that agreement.
I don't recall seconding that motion. I'll have to look
We
at
have
that,
it
sir.
here. So if you seconded that motion, did you read that agreement?
Madam Chair, I read agreements and I read all the documents that are put before us, which is good governance. And anybody
Did
who
you
serves on
read
a
the
board,
document
volunteer,
that you-
we have to read documents.
Did you read that document that you seconded on the CSB agreement?
Madam Chair, I read all documents that come in front of me.
Okay, thank you. And you referred to reaching out to people. We've got a quote from Christine Sinclair, which of course that's a name that I know and have recognized in soccer, said, in fact, since she's been elected, she hasn't reached out to me.
Madam Chair, when that comment was done, when they were in front of this parliament, it was 4 days into my interim presidency. So you can imagine the scale. And I was actually told that I would have to work through the coaches in order to connect with the athletes. As is normal protocol with us, we reach out through the coaches, through the athletes, through the players, and there's a busy time for them through their competitive schedule. And I would not ever demand on their time, but we did have a meeting 2 weeks after that when it was available for all of us to be together. And we had a quite cordial meeting talking about some of their challenges, some of the
Was Ms. Sinclair
opportunities to
part of
grow
that
and
meeting?
work together.
Was Ms. Sinclair part of
meeting-
that?
That meeting that we had, that was with my vice president at the time, who was also a woman, Kelly Brown. We
Sinclair
had
involved in that meeting?
with all four of the senior member teams. I'm sorry.
Was Sinclair
Sorry, I
involved
didn't-
in that meeting? Have you met with
It
her
was
since?
Sinclair, it was Quinn, it was Janine Becky, and it was Ms. Schmidt. So all four who were in front of you.
Appreciate that.
We worked again through the coaches to meet them.
So
Thank
the
you.
person that you were running against for president, as quoted, Rob came right after right out and said the CSB agreement, saying it has to be ripped up and renegotiated. Will you rip it up and renegotiate that agreement?
Madam Chair, as I mentioned earlier, that agreement is in the process of being modernized. We have an opportunity to look at all our agreements, and we are looking to modernize that to be better in line with sponsorship opportunities, to be better in line with timeframes as well. So looking at opportunities to grow our game is what we do. Every partnership that we have should always be looked at in the vein that it
Thank
helps
you.
to grow our game.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Not sure what modernization means. But on the voting structure, 85 votes, 15 potentially coming from one source, Soccer Canada. Are you going to change the voting structure for president?
As a matter of fact, we have already decided in November that we will look at the entire structure of our governance when it comes to
Ask,
voting.
are you in
So
favor
we
of
will
changing the
have those
voting?
meetings.
Are you in favor of changing the voting structure?
Madam Chair, I'm in favor of a structure that is fair and equitable to all the groups across, but it's up to the membership to have that dialogue, to have that conversation, and to be compliant
that.
and in
But
line.
my question is you. What is your opinion on that voting structure?
Madam Chair, my opinion is that we will work to put in a structure that is for the benefit of all constituents
That's a
across the
non-answer.
country.
Are you going to run for president another term?
Madam
30
Chair,
seconds.
as you know, my presidency now is a 1-year term to serve out the term from Nick Bontis. And at the end of the day, it will be those members who will vote if I so choose
Stand that.
to
Are you
move
going to
forward
run?
in the next year.
Are you going to run?
It'll be up to the members and how my work is, and that decision will be made at that time.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I now go to the Liberals. Lisa Hepner. Lisa, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I would like to echo some of my colleagues and thank Ms. Crooks very much for appearing here today and also her amazing contributions to our country and our culture. So we really appreciate that. I would like to ask you about something I've been curious about since we had the women's team appear before us at that committee. Shortly before they appeared before us, there was a press release that came out from Canada Soccer that detailed a little bit about the proposed collective agreement. And I thought that the timing was a little strange. So I was hoping that you could explain how that all happened for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you may recall, there was a release of a press release that outlined where we were in the labor negotiations. And that release, perhaps the timing may not have been the best timing, but the Secretary General just wanted to make sure that that information was out there, was going to be out there, but the timing was just what it was.
Okay, thank you. I mean, you did talk in your opening statement about ethical leadership and how that it's necessary for good governance. And I'm wondering, you are also, I looked in your biography, the founding member of the IOC Ethics Committee. So would you tell us a little bit about what that means to have ethics in governance, how you envision that and how you implement that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, as a member of that committee, we certainly dealt with a lot of the fallout that happened as a result of the Salt Lake City scandal, when many IOC members were removed. But we also, what we did was we set up the IOC Code of Ethics, which is now in place, which are the guiding principles about ethics in sport. It does touch on governance. It does touch on breaches. It touches on everything that we would well be aware would be aligned with leadership and ethical principles of sport. So I was very proud of that work, but I also believe that that work and ethics in sport should permeate within all organizations, particularly here in Canada. We cannot be complacent when it comes to ethics in sport. I think we should always be evolving, and we should always have opportunities for dialogue, and the work that your committee is doing is part of that. It's setting that foundation. It really is setting that really foundational work that gives us an opportunity not just to be better as an organization, but to be better as Canadians.
Thank you. And you've, I think, expressed to us at this committee today some of the processes that you've implemented to try and make Canada Soccer more transparent and accountable. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but I'd also like to ask you if there's anything, because this has been a big story and this is lots of people have been talking about Soccer Canada lately. Is there anything out there that you feel has been misrepresented? Is there anything that you would like to clarify for the public while you have these couple of minutes left?
Well, Madam Chair, thank you. Madam Chair, I'm honored to be part of an organization that does have from grassroots all the way up to the national team level. And that does present some of its complexities, of course. But I always look at sport as being sport for all, and soccer is for all. It's in every corridor of our country. And we want to make sure that we have a framework and we have the opportunities that everyone's engaged. Men, women, various diverse groups from our Indigenous communities to the very multi-ethnic groups that are across our country. This is the kind of organization we want to build. Yes, one that is transparent and that's built on trust and that's built on again, further transparency. But we also have our athletes, and we have to make sure that we do right by them, because they are the ones, and their platforms are so powerful and so important, and they are the inspiration for our nation. So that's what drives me every day, and we just want to put our arms around so many of the various groups that aren't a part of Canada Soccer and bring them in, and let them feel that this is a safe environment that they can be a part of.
30 seconds.
Thank you, Ms. Crooks. I'm not sure you have enough time to answer my next question fulsomely. And we've spoken about this already today a bit, but I still don't fully understand why has been such a disparity in the incomes between the men's and the women's players. Perhaps you could give us some sort of brief afterwards or address it later in the committee and just help us break this down and show us more clearly how you're going to achieve pay equity in soccer.
Thank you, Lisa. Maybe Ms. Crooks can address that in a later question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I now go to Monsieur Lemieux for 2.5 minutes. Thank you.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Crooks, are you the president of NG Consultants?
Excuse me? I'm sorry?
Are you the president of NG Consultants?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is my consulting company. Yes.
How many contracts did you or spouse or a member of your family receive in terms of compensation from FIFA at that point?
I have never received any compensation or have never had any work directed to FIFA to any of my companies. No.
Et pour les membres de votre famille?
And for your family members?
No, nobody from my family.
Est-ce que vous avez déjà...
Have you already received money from Soccer Canada when you were sitting on the board member? You said right now that you're a volunteer, but in the past, did you receive any payment for the services you provided?
I have never received any payment for any service. I've never provided any service for Canada Soccer except in my volunteer capacity as a member of the board.
Merci.
Thank you. Your name appeared in the Vancouver newspapers in the minutes with respect to the Olympic Games that took place at that time. What was this controversy all about?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, with the Olympics?
The Vancouver Olympics.
Madam Chair, I was a board member of the Vancouver Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games from the bid all the way up and through to the successful games that left a lot of legacies for Canada.
At Soccer Canada, did you ever get a CSB contract? Are you aware?
No, Madam Chair, I have never received any contract from CSB. That would be a complete conflict of interest.
Est-ce que...
Are the female athletes in contact with Nike through Soccer Canada?
Madam Chair, I'm not exactly sure what that question pertains to, but I do not work as an agent for any of our players, so that might be a question best posed to them directly.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crooks and Sebastien. And I'm going to go now to the NDP for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm from BC, and it was quite shocking for the soccer community, certainly in BC and around the Vancouver region where I was, when the news came out about Mr. Berarda. And so my question is about some of the conversations that are happening now in the community on all sports, not just soccer, on all sports, and the abuse and that imbalance of power that exists. So I see here that lawyer Richard McLaren and McLaren Global Sports Solutions calls Canada Soccer's governance dysfunctional and inefficient. And this was back in 2008. And so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. I mean, I'd asked you some questions earlier about governance. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about those words, dysfunctional and inefficient governance. Is that what you experienced in your term?
Madam Chair, I can't speak to how it was back then, but what I can speak to it now is that we have a board of some highly experienced individuals from the corporate world who are joining. We just had a few new board members, independent new board members join today. And I'm proud to say that we have almost half are women, and most from the corporate sector, and we can be proud of that. And many that speak are both official languages, which we are improving on, including our vice president who speaks our official languages. I believe that governance training is very important, particularly for sports boards. We are volunteers primarily, but a lot of us are perhaps may be on do other things that are outside the sport world. And I saw some of the new potential governance changes that looking at today for organizations is to make sure that we have a higher level of expertise. So we're constantly looking at how we can build our matrix of experts, but we have some voices that are missing. And I believe that the athlete voice is one of them. I came through that as an athlete voice on many organizations. That gave me a chance to have a voice. And we want our athletes to also have an opportunity to have a voice. Players Council, we do have on our board a former national team player who's there more as an independent member, but she is there and she is an incredible board member who gives such incredible context because she lived that game. So the more we do that, I believe the better we will be served, be able to serve the organization.
Thank you. I wanted to get one more question in. So
thank you.
It seems like Soccer Canada was being run as a business. It started to be really about a business. It started to be really about where was the money moving and coming and going. And there was they lost sight of the athletes. I believe they lost sight of the athletes. And we heard that too, even from the team around youth and young people. And you mentioned in your comments at the beginning that you want to invest in that. So I really want to understand if you feel that there has been a change, that mindset that went from, this is a handshake, gentleman's agreement driven business organization, or is this an organization that is really going to be able to get itself on the path of where it cares about athletes as young athletes all the way through their life?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you said that exactly how I was going to start my response. We are an organization that is complex because we have a variety of stakeholders. We have from grassroots all the way up to national team, but we also have our professional teams as well who are part of us. So it is complex, but we want to
please wind up, Ms. Crooks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. But we want to make sure that we are serving all the constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I go to Richard Martel for the Conservatives. 5 minutes, please, Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Crooks. I'd like to ask a question about financing. I know that there have been a lot of cuts made. What's going to happen with the youth development, the amateur structure? What's your plan? How do you see this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I see that we are continuing to look at ways to make sure that we do not compromise what the players and what our youth of today have to do on the pitch. So we work very closely with the technical team, but we also have to look and open up other partnerships and throughout the region as well to share some resources. We are not the only member association that has been under a lot of the financial strains. But what I can assure you is that we will always do it with a gender equity lens in mind to make sure that we are doing for the young men and young women the same we're doing for all across the organization. So I hope that answers part of your question. I didn't hear the second part. I'm sorry.
Madam Crooks.
For the training of your coaches, what's your plan? Will coaches receive more training? Will there be any follow-up done? Will these people have to report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will continue to have more training, especially when it comes to safe sport for all coaches, officials, administrators, volunteers, and even the board. Nobody will not be part of the safe sport training that will be available to make sure that we have that throughout the organization. That is part of building a safe sport culture.
Cette formation-là, elle va être, c'est
Who's going to look after the training aspect, and who's going to be providing this training to coaches who work with young players?
We have currently, Madam Chair, we have currently a system in place internally where this is already happening, and we are going to strengthen that. We have in our staff those who are working on development, and they work directly with the provincial and territorial member associations on much of that coaching, training, certification that we're all aware of.
Ms. Crooks, I'm curious about something. I'll offer an observation. There's been quite a few questions that have been asked of you today with regards to, there were questions about being on the call when Mr. Nick Bontis called Sinclair a bitch. There were questions, and you denied being there, even though we have evidence to the contrary. Further to that, you were asked questions with regards to the Canada Soccer business deal, and you denied that, even though we have the minutes in front of us that say that you seconded that motion at committee. I've noted that when you were asked those two questions, your posture was tight, and you had a very formulated answer ready to go. But I've noticed that when we've asked you other questions, you've been more free, you've kind of chuckled. I wonder if you're lying. I wonder if you're lying. Are you being totally truthful with us today, or are you skirting our questions?
Madam Chair, I vehemently reject that notion. I came to you today to speak openly, with respect, and in a spirit of safe sport. And that's why I'm here, and that's what I will continue to do. To say that I missed something or what have you, I did not recall. There's a lot of motions I put on the table over these years that I did not recall, and I vehemently reject that notion.
So none of our questions have been skirted by you today. You have been as truthful as you possibly could be. You have told the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth. You have not reserved anything from us today.
Madam Chair, I took an oath before I presented before you today, and everything that I'm telling you is the truth based on everything I know at the time, and I'm sharing with you openly.
In the few seconds you have left, give me 2 solid steps that you're going to take to so-called modernize the CSB.
10 seconds.
I talked about it already, and we've already started that process. One of them is to look at the term limits, and the other one is to look at how we can increase sponsorship throughout the organization.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas and Mrs. Thomas.
It's me.
Someone has a mic open on the floor. Can you please mute it? Thank you very much. And we now go to the Liberals for 5 minutes. Anthony Housefather, 5 minutes, Anthony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Crooks. So I just want to come back as my colleague from the NDP, Ms. Earl, had mentioned the McLaren report, which of course wasn't in 2008. It was much more recent. And it also involved a review of in 2019 when 14 U20 players did come forward to share their accounts of abuse and bullying at the hands of Berarda, which was reported on extensively by the press. What I think was surprising at the time was that Canada Soccer didn't go talk to those people who alleged to have been victimized. You just came forward with a very bland statement saying that Canada Soccer doesn't have any further details about the ongoing matter. So I think that was the concern on that. It was not necessarily you're not responsible in any way for what happened in 2008. There was a feeling of a lack of sensitivity at the board in 2019. So I just wanted to now let me ask about CSB. And I can understand there's lots of motions that come before Canada Soccer Board every meeting. But of course, this is a most important deal that Canada Soccer has signed in the last 10 years. You would think that that motion would be much more memorable and relevant than other motions. So I know that there was a negotiating team. I know there were outside counsel. But you, as a very smart businesswoman, would have asked some questions. So did you ask the negotiators why they agreed to a 20-year agreement where the CSB had a unilateral option to extend after 10 years and Canada Soccer did not?
Madam Chair, there was a team that was internally, as you know, our structure. The Secretary General works very closely on these deals, and what we knew at the time and what was presented to us, we made a decision based on the information that was presented to us at the time. A 20-year deal.
I understand. I'm sorry, Ms. Crooks. I understand. I only have a limited amount of time. What I was asking, though, I'm very sorry, was a very specific question. As a smart businesswoman, yes, there's people that the board puts out to negotiate, but then it comes back to the board, and everyone in the board has the ability to ask questions and poke holes. Did you ask why they agreed to a unilateral extension after 10 years for CSB and not giving Canada Soccer the option to exit the contract after 10 years if it was not working out?
There are areas, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this was an opportunity to grow the deal after IMG. And this CSB opportunity was what was presented to us, and based on the information we had, and looking at the upside, $3 million a year, when we had a lot of challenges was in the organization. It was a deal at the time that was good. Now times have changed, and we have.
Can I ask a question? I'm so sorry. Again, I know you're not here, and you were.
Excuse me. I will just pause for a second. There is a mic open on the floor. Someone is coughing. We can hear the echo. So if you could all make sure to look at your red lights and make sure they're off, please. Good. Go ahead. I paused, Anthony, so I didn't take any of your time. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, Ms. Crooks, I do understand. I do understand that. But again, what you keep saying is that you were presented with this, you were presented with that. As an independent board member, the questions of why you unilaterally went to CSB and didn't allow the deal to be bid, including by those who were doing the contracts in the United States and Mexico, why you would agree to a 20-year term. Yes, it may have looked like there was an upside for $3 million at the outset, but then everybody knew there was not a great upside going forward. The deal has figures where the amounts never go over $4,500,000 after 20 years. If there were upsides, for example, if you had negotiated that if we make the Olympics, the deal goes up to $8 million. If we make the World Cup, the deal goes up to $10 million. If we host a World Cup, it goes up to $15 million. None of those are there. And I think as a smart businesswoman, you would have seen that. And so my question is, did you ask those questions at the time? Or did you just rely on this negotiating team and the outside counsel to come forward with a deal that in the end, I think pretty much the universality of people who have looked at it think doesn't make any sense?
Madam Chair, this deal will be modernized. And these same challenges that we're talking about today, we also feel a lot of that. And we want to make sure that whatever we come out of this, it's in the best interest of Canada Soccer moving forward. There have been some precedents with other associations that also have had long-term deals. But where we are now is looking at how we can make it better. And there is an opening.
I understand.
And we are taking that, working that together.
I'm going to wind. I'm going to wind Madam Chair up. I only have 24 seconds. I know. The last question, then, Ms. Crooks, is again. You talk about the leverage, but where is the leverage? You signed a deal for 20 years that you have no exit terms of. They defaulted during the pandemic in paying, but Canada Soccer didn't take any action to declare them in default. Why did you sign a deal that created no women's professional league, but yet you let the women's team assets be part of this deal to create the CPL? None of this makes any sense.
Madam Chair, we are looking at every single angle to be able to fix some of these, correct some of these areas of this partnership.
Thank you. Now, we have, I guess, 5 minutes left to go in this. We could go, everyone, with a 3-3, 1.5, 1.5 round, but that's really pushing it. How does everyone feel you have asked all the burning questions? Because we committed to 5:45. Can I get a sense that people would like to end the questions now?
I think I think we agreed to end at 5:45,
yes,
Madam Chair, and I think
and it's
there's
almost there.
Heads nodding that perhaps it's time to adjourn. So I will move said motion
Thank
to adjourn.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank Ms. Crooks for being here. And I wanted to thank everyone in the committee for getting along so nicely and keeping to time. So thank you very much, Ms. Crooks. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you for being here today. And I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Merci à l'équipe de traduction.